Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make cream buns, and this is what it looks like. This bun is made with an enriched bread dough. It's kind of like a brioche, only not as rich. And then it has this really nice, soft, fluffy texture. As you can see, we cut it in half, and then we fill it with loads of whipped cream, and we dust the top with powdered sugar. They're really good. Any time of the day, just any time of the day. So the first thing we're going to do is make a sponge. Kind of maybe sounds intimidating, but really a sponge is just a little bit of bread dough. And we make it like 12 to 14 hours before we make our actual dough for our buns. So I like to do it like the night before. Really easy to make. All you do is, in a small bowl, I have 1 cup minus a tablespoon, which is 115 grams of bread flour. I'm using bread flour in the sponge because I want the buns to have like a little bit of chew. And then I'm just adding 1/8 of a teaspoon. I'm using SAF red instant yeast. You could just use active dry yeast if you want. I'm just doing this with my hands. My fingers, and then I'm going to add 1/4 cup plus 1 tablespoon, 75 grams of cold water. If you have a scale, I do recommend using scales to weigh your ingredients, much more accurate. So I'm just going to mix this until all the flour is moistened. That looks good. Now the reason we do a sponge, or you can call it pre-ferment, is it actually adds extra flavor and texture to our final bread. And it's not hard to do. I'm done. So what you want to do is just take, a plastic container, or you could just use your bowl. I've just greased it with a little bit of oil, vegetable oil, or you could just spray it so it doesn't stick, and then just pop it in there. I just flip it over, and if you're using a bowl, cover it with plastic wrap. I'm just using one of these containers I got from the store, and then we're going to let it sit 12 to 14 hours at room temperature. Room temperature is classified as 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 24°C. So, of course, if your room temperature is warmer than that, it might take a little less. If it's colder, it might take a little longer. But this is what you're looking for, the final. See? It's risen kind of at least double. It's got lots of bubbles in it. So that's what you want. So I've done mine, of course, so we can start our bread dough. So now, for our bread dough, if you have a stand mixer, use your paddle attachment. We have a long beating time here, so I do recommend a stand mixer. I mean, you could do it by hand, but there's a lot of kneading. So what we're going to do is take 3/4 cup plus 1 teaspoon, which is 185 grams of cold water. I'm using cold water because, like I said, we're going to need this for quite a long time, and that's going to warm up our dough. So that's why I like to start with cold water, and I'm also adding 1 large egg, and that's cold. And a large egg out of the shell is 50 grams. Then I'm going to, let's move that. I'm going to take our sponge, just put that right in there, make sure I get it all. And then for our dry ingredients, I have 2 2/3 cups, which is 350 grams. Now I'm using all-purpose flour. I used a little bit of bread in the sponge, and now this. So that's the all-purpose is going to give us a soft texture, and then that little bit of chew from the bread flour. Then to that, I'm adding 2 tablespoons, 28 grams of granulated white sugar. Covered mine in my prep. I put it in plastic wrap and I didn't take it off. This is dried milk powder, 3.5 tablespoons, 25 grams. It adds color, makes the buns nice and golden brown, and flavor. So, and then salt, 2 teaspoons, 8 grams of, I'm using a fine kosher salt, and of course our yeast. I'm just going to mix that. I have 1.25 teaspoons, which is 4 grams. I'm using the SAF Gold instant yeast here. Again, you could use your active dry, but if you're using your active dry, I would take a little bit of that water and heat it to lukewarm and then stir in your yeast. Let it sit 5 minutes or so till it starts to foam up. And then you can just put it in. So I'm just going to dump that in there too. So now, like I said, we're going to need this for quite a while because it's just like really this kind of silky smooth dough. It's just wonderful. Tastes good too. So now what we're going to do, I have a timer. I'm going to beat this on first speed for 5 minutes. It's going to get it all mixed together and moistened. And then I'm going to increase the mixer speed to second speed and do it for like maybe 3 to 5 minutes until it'll be really silky smooth and elastic, and then it cleans the bowl pretty well. And I will show you what that looks like. So first speed for 5, second speed for 3 to 5. Okay, so now, I don't know whether you can see it at home, the dough has cleaned the sides of the bowl and the bottom. It will be a little sticky, but nice and smooth. So what I'm going to do is just do what they call the window pane test to see if I've kneaded it enough. I always say knead the... Anyways, just wet your hands very lightly. Take a little, just twist off a little bit of dough, and then just gently stretch it. I can tell this is done. If you kind of stretch it gently and it tears really easily, then knead it for like maybe another minute, but this is good. Stretch it, doesn't tear. So now what we're going to do is add 5 tablespoons, 70 grams of unsalted butter that's at room temperature. And then you want it quite soft so that it will mix in really easily. We're going to knead it on second speed. I'm going to say 3 to 5 minutes until, again, it cleans the bowl and it's just a little sticky. So check it at about 3. You know, everybody's mixer, I give you so many minutes at first speed. Well, that works for my mixer, but if you're using a different one, it may be slightly different. So time is one factor, but you got to start to, you know, watch your dough, feel it, and then it might take a little longer, it might take a little less with your mixer. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so that was about 4 to 5 minutes. I don't think I mentioned, before we add the butter, if you stop and you feel your dough and it is super sticky, if you notice mine was a little, but if yours was like really sticky, like you can't even work with it, that is a sign that you should knead it like a minute or 2 longer. I don't know whether I said that, but if not, if I did, then I'll repeat it. So now it's a beautiful dough. It's silky smooth. I'm just going to take the temperature. I'm sitting at about 76 Fahrenheit, which is about, is that 24, 25 C. So it's at room temperature. So that is why I use the cold water and the cold egg, because We kneaded the dough for, it was over 10 minutes, wasn't it? So it warms it up, so that's why you start with the cold ingredients. I always get asked that question, why do you use that? That's why. So now, I'm going to take a large bowl and just put a little bit flavorless oil in there. And just take a paper towel. You could use one of those sprays as well, just so the dough doesn't stick. And then, if you've ever made brioche, you'll notice this is similar in that wonderful silky texture. It's just we didn't add as much butter and as much eggs as a brioche. I'm just going to flip that over so there's a little oil on top. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this sit proof for 1 hour at room temperature. Like I said, room temperature 75 Fahrenheit, 24 C. If, you know, especially in the winter, your kitchen tends to be cold, what I do, and then just cover it with plastic wrap. What I do is your oven's turned off. I put on the oven light for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. That tends to get it up to, you know, about room temperature. That's a good place to put it. If you had one of these infrared thermometers, which I love, I actually just beam it into my oven, and I can see what the temperature is, and then if it's not at room temperature, I just turn my oven light on for about 10 minutes. I can check again. So a handy tool, not only for your dough, but then you can play with it. The kids can play with it. See what the temperature of the wall is. So now, we'll let that sit, room temperature, 1 hour. So it's been about an hour, so we are ready to form our buns, or rolls, I guess you could call them. So you will need a baking sheet. I've lined mine with parchment paper, or you could just lightly spray it. And I'm going to flour my surface. The dough, feel it's nice and soft. It didn't double in size, so don't worry. It's not going to rise that much. So put top side down and just scrape the bowl here. We're going to make 12 buns. So it's really easy to divide the dough if you have a scale, because 73 grams per bun. If you have to or otherwise you're just going to, I guess, eyeball it. So a scale, anytime I can plug a scale. So I'm using a scraper, use a knife. I said about 73 grams. There we go. So I've formed most of them, about 10, so I will show you how to do it. Take a little flour, put your dough, and then flatten it into a round. Make sure you get rid of if there's any air bubbles. And then what I'm going to do is just take all the sides and gather it into the center. And then squeeze it, seal it. And then I'm going to flip it over. And then you don't want any flour on your surface when you're doing this. You could have a little flour on the top. And then with the palm, you're going to want to get some surface tension there on our buns until you have like that, nice smooth. And then I have 4 rows of 3. I'll show you again. A little bit of flour, flatten it. All the ends, pinch it to seal, flip it over. You can have a little flour on there, but don't have any flour on your surface. Otherwise, if you do flour your surface, you will find you can't get the nice surface tension. It'll slip all over the place. Learned that the hard way. So there, okay. Now what we're going to do, I just take a piece of plastic wrap. We're going to let these proof for about an hour and a half at room temperature. They will rise, and when you take a finger and very gently put it in, poke the sides, it will leave an indentation that will slowly come up. So I find, you know, if you're at room temperature, it's about an hour and a half. So I did lightly spray my plastic wrap, and the reason is I don't want, if I didn't spray it, then the plastic wrap would stick to the top of the buns and not let them rise the way they need to. So just a light spray, or if you don't have a spray, just put a little oil on there. So about an hour and a half, and then when we come back, we will bake them off. So now I let the buns proof, so we're ready to bake them off. So preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 200 degrees Celsius. And then I'm going to make an egg wash and brush the tops and sides of our buns with that. One, it gives a nice shine and helps with browning. So in a small bowl, I have 1 large egg yolk, room temperature. Large egg yolk is, I don't know, 17, 18 grams. And to that, I'm going to add just a half a tablespoon. I'm using cream, or you could use milk, and just whisk that together. Simple enough. And then I got my pastry brush, smooth these over, and just a light coating on all over the top and sides of our buns. Okay, my last one here. Be ready to go. So now, everyone's oven is a little different, as I always say. I'm going to say between 14 and 16 minutes. So what's going to happen? You will get what's called oven spring, which means they are going to rise a little more. They're going to turn a beautiful golden brown, and when you tap them, it will sound hollow. But a lot of times you can just tell when it turns that beautiful golden brown. I do like to rotate my baking sheet front to back about halfway through, so 14 to 16 minutes. Okay. So our buns are done. They look gorgeous. So put your pan on a wire rack. They do sound hollow. Don't they look gorgeous? Beautiful golden brown, nice and shiny from that egg wash. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let these cool down to room temperature, and then when we come back, we will make our whipped cream. So now we are going to make our whipped cream. If you have a stand mixer like I have here, use your whisk attachment. You could use a hand mixer, or really use a large bowl and a wire whisk. So you will need 2 cups, 480 milliliters of cold, heavy whipping cream, and that's cream with the 35 to 40% butter content, or what that means is when I whip it, it will hold stiff peaks. So let's put all that. Now I like mine my whipped cream a little sweet. The buns aren't that sweet. If you know, we only put a couple of tablespoons, about 28 grams of sugar for the whole amount for the 12 buns. So I like my cream a little on the sweeter side. You can make it that way, or you can make it less sweet, more sweet. Really, it's up to you. But I'm going to add, you could add probably between 1/4 and 1/3 of a cup of granulated white sugar. So that's 50 to say 65 grams. And then I like to add a little bit of vanilla. So I'm adding, you could add anywhere, depending how strong you want that vanilla flavor, from 1/2 to 1 teaspoon, so 2 to 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. A lot of times what I do is I whip my cream almost to stiff peaks, and then I taste it to see if I like it or not, and then you can adjust, more sugar, more vanilla. So now what I'm going to do is whip it until it holds stiff peaks. If you're using a stand mixer, be careful, because it's amazing how fast it will go from a liquid to almost like butter. So don't walk away. So medium or medium high. Okay, that looks about done. Sometimes I like to even finish it off with my wire whisk because I want to make sure I don't over whip it. But I'll just tell you a fix. If by chance, you know, sometimes we're not paying attention and we over whip it, like we want nice, yeah, that's good. If you by chance over whip, don't worry. Just take a little more heavy whipping cream, pour it in, you know, pour a little in there, and then with your wire whisk, just whisk it in, and that will thin it out a bit, and you'll be just fine. So yeah, that's good. Now this is a lot of cream because this will fill all of your buns. So if you don't want 12, which you may not, because these are best, like fill them and eat them the day they're made. I mean, you can refrigerate them for a day, but I like them freshly made. So you can adjust this recipe, you know, just make a cup of cream. Now, I'm going to pipe the cream in the buns. Makes it look fancy dance. You don't have to. I mean, it's just for home. You can just take a spoon and spoon it in, but we'll be fancy dance. And I have a piping bag with a star tip. I'm using a Wilton 1M, but you know, you can use whatever type of tip you want. I put it into my bag, and then what I do is I turn it, and then I kind of stuff it in there, so that way when I put the cream, it doesn't come out right away. And then I just take a glass, and then fold down the top, make a little cuff there, and then I can, that way, you know, you can kind of put it in one hand, but this makes it, I think, a little easier to do it. And then I'll just spoon some in. Got lots of cream. These buns, like unfilled, they freeze really well. So what you could do is freeze some of them and then, you know, take them out another time and make cream buns. Or really, these are good rolls, like dinner rolls. I actually use them for that too. So if you want like 6 cream buns and 6 dinner rolls. Okay, I'm gonna leave that in there for a sec. And then, so take a dinner, or take a bun roll, whatever you want to call it. There's different ways. Sometimes I've cut them this way and vertically, but not right down to the bottom, and kind of open them up like that. Maybe I'll do one like that. I'll show you both ways I do it. I just cut down, but not to the bottom. And then I fill it in here. I'll show you how. Yeah, I'll show you how I do that. And for this one, I'm just going to cut off the top. So a couple ways to do it. So first, we'll do that. And cream buns are popular around the world. They're called different things. They typically all have lots of whipped cream, but sometimes you can like scoop out a little bit of the bread here, and you could put in like a little bit of lemon curd, you could put a little jam, you could put a little almond paste, and then the whipped cream. I just love my whipped cream. So depending where you live, you may want to do it a little different. So I'm gonna come here and kind of push it down. kind of open it up to get the air, and then you can let that go. Make sure it goes down. We're ready. And then what I do is just twist this, and then I guide with this hand. So, like I said, you could just spoon, like I said, but I'm going to pipe. And really, you can put as much or as little cream as you want. I won't say anything if you put lots, because I like lots. I'm going to do lots. Okay, there's that one. And then, this one's a little, kind of open it up, and then can you tell I like whipped cream? I won't tell if you don't. Okay, so there's two ways. Either way. I kind of like, this way's easier to eat because then I just kind of pull the bun apart and then have the cream. But I kind of like the look of this one a little better. What I'm going to do is just put a little, or a lot, of powdered sugar over the top. I'm going to put them both here. And then you can decide which one you like. I don't know. I like them both. But there we have our cream buns. Like I said, I mean, I think they're best, of course, the first day. But hey, a lot of times there's one left over. I cover it and put it in the fridge. And then if I'm first up, I eat it for breakfast. Don't tell anyone. But, so I'm going to eat this one because it's a little, I find a little easier to eat. I'm going to split it in half. And then I just kind of have some cream on both sides. They can be a little messy to eat, but who cares? They're good. Oh. They're so good. Sorry, we have to chew. They are a little chewy from that bread flour. They are soft, fluffy. You know, with the butter, the egg, very nice tasting bread. That's why I say these make really good dinner rolls. And of course, whipped cream. What's not to like? To me, this is, I put in 1/3 of a cup, 65 grams of the sugar and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. That's what I use. And that's the way I like it. I think it's perfect. So, you must try these. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com.